Accessing peace. Existing without violence, with the ability to calmly resolve conflict. Downloading love. An overwhelming, deep, positive affection towards others. Activating liberty. Living your life as you see fit without infringing on the lives of others.
Welcome to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at fppradio.com. I am your host, Darryl W. Perry, the Liberty Penguin, the Wombat, the uncut cocaine of libertarianism. And it's Friday, which means, yeah, that's right, it's the day that I answer your questions. And I've only got one this week, but it's a doozy. Question: do police have to respond to domestic violence calls, and can they threaten to arrest the victim for calling? Now, this is one of those things to where the statutory requirements of what is required by police varies from location to location, but generally, yes, police do have to respond to calls. And can they threaten to arrest the victim for calling? Well, they can do basically whatever they want to do. The question is whether or not it stands up in court. I believe the question asker means, can they legally threaten to arrest the victim for calling? And again, it would really be up to a judge to determine that, because every case is going to be different, and while I don't know the specifics of this particular case, you know, the question, and this might not even be in regards to a specific case, it could just be a hypothetical, but really this is something that a judge would look at on a case-by-case basis in all likelihood. Now, I want to use this opportunity to touch on something much broader that is kind of tied in here. And it's something that libertarians, and by that I don't just mean members of the Libertarian Party, but all, you know, people within the libertarian sphere, and probably some conservatives, probably some liberals might be aware of this as well. Back in 2005, and this is not the first time the Supreme Court or any court has made such a ruling, but back in 2005, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that police do not have a constitutional duty to protect a person from harm, even if it's a woman who obtained a court-issued protective order against a violent husband, making an arrest mandatory for a violation. The story here from the New York Times, and again, this is from 2005, but if you just do a Google search for no duty to protect, you will find court cases such as Warren v. District of Columbia. There's also DeShaney v. Winnebago County, and Castle Rock v. Gonzalez, which is the case that I'm talking about here from 2005. The decision, with an opinion by Justice Antonin Scalia and dissenting opinions from John Paul Stevens and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, overturned a ruling by a federal appeals court in Colorado. The appeals court had permitted a lawsuit to proceed against a Colorado town, Castle Rock, for failure of the police to respond to a woman's pleas for help after her estranged husband violated a protective order by kidnapping their 3 young daughters, whom he eventually killed. So, to rephrase this, a woman who had a protective order against the estranged husband called police because the estranged husband had kidnapped their 3 children. The estranged husband later killed the 3 children. The specifics of this case: on June 22nd, 1999, Jessica Gonzalez tried for hours to get the Castle Rock police to find and arrest her estranged husband, Simon, who was under a court order to stay 100 yards away from her house. He had taken the 3 children, 7, 9, and 10, as they played outside the house. He later called his wife to tell her that he had the girls at an amusement park in Denver. Miss Gonzalez conveyed the information to the police, but they failed to act before Mr. Gonzalez arrived at the police station hours later, firing a gun with the bodies of the girls in the back of his truck. The police killed him on the scene. Continuing here, the theory of the lawsuit Ms. Gonzalez filed in federal district court in Denver was that Colorado law had given her an enforceable right to protection by instructing the police on the court order that, quote, you shall arrest or issue a warrant for the arrest of a violator. She argued that the order gave her a property interest within the meaning of the 14th Amendment's due process guarantee, which prohibits the deprivation of property without due process. The district court and a panel of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 10th Circuit dismissed the suit, but the full appeals court reinstated it and the town appealed. The U.S. Supreme Court's precedent made the appellate ruling a challenging one for Ms. Gonzalez and her lawyers to sustain. A 1989 decision, DeShaney v. Winnebago County, which I referenced earlier, held that the failure by county social service workers to protect a young boy from a beating by his father did not breach any substantive constitutional duty. By framing her case as one of process rather than substance, Ms. Gonzalez and her lawyers hoped to find a way around that court precedent. But the majority saw little difference between the earlier case and this one, Castle Rock v. Gonzalez. Ms. Gonzalez did not have a property interest in enforcing her restraining order, said Justice Scalia, adding that such a right would not, of course, resemble any traditional concept of property. Although the protective order did mandate an arrest or arrest warrant, in so many words, Justice Scalia said a well-established tradition of police discretion has long coexisted with apparently mandating arrest statutes. So let me rephrase this to, something other than legalese. Even though you have a protective order, and even though there's a statute saying that police must arrest someone or issue an arrest warrant, police have discretion. That's basically what the court wound up ruling here, but there is more to this article that we'll get into here in moments on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com.
You can support FPP Radio by joining the Fans program. Fans are friends, allies, and numerous supporters. Fans help FPP afford to produce more original content. You can join the Fans program for as little as $1 per month through Patreon and get perks like ad-free versions of FPP Radio News and Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. To learn more or to join the Fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com. That's fans.fppradio.com.
Cell 411 is a free app for Android and iOS that replaces government-controlled 911. Cell 411 allows you to preset a group of friends or private organizations to show up in any emergency. Cell 411 is a nightmare for the state because it proves their so-called services aren't needed. Cell 411 has had thousands of installs, and of course it's covered by the BIPCOT no government license. Cell 411 because your friends won't shoot you when you're in trouble. Without the government, who would build the emergency services? You and Cell 411. Get it today at getcell411.com. That's getcell411.com.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. I am your host, Darryl W. Perry, the Liberty Penguin, the wombat, the uncut cocaine of libertarianism. And I'm going to get back into the article from the New York Times in just a moment. But first, I've got a question for you. Do you like cryptocurrency? Do you want one that is better? Do you want a better cryptocurrency? One with a focus on users and usability? Then look into Zencash. Zencash is the world's first private, distributed, and reliable platform for communications, transactions, and publishing. Zencash has the ability to use both transparent and shielded transactions, with shielded transactions using zero-knowledge proofs. Shielded transaction means that only the sender and the receiver have any knowledge that the transaction happened or what was in said transaction. Zencash features global governance with inclusive decision-making, reliable funding for continuous improvements, and documentation and wallets in many languages that are available for Linux, Mac, Windows, and Android devices. Yeah, that's right. I've got the Zen wallet on my smartphone, and that's something that there are not a lot of cryptocurrencies that have their own standalone wallet. Yeah. There are a fair number of cryptocurrencies that are in some multi-currency wallets, but really, you want a standalone wallet for your crypto. And Zencash has a standalone wallet for Zencash for Android devices. Yeah, and there's also, again, Linux, Mac, and Windows. And it's not just in English. All kinds of languages. Learn more at zensystem.io. That's zensystem.io. Jumping back into the article from the New York Times, again from 2005, justices rule that police do not have a constitutional duty to protect someone. This case is Town of Castle Rock, Colorado v. Gonzalez. Again, Justice Antonin Scalia says that even though there's a protective order that did mandate an arrest or an arrest warrant, Justice Scalia said a well-established tradition of police discretion has long coexisted with apparently mandatory arrest statutes. So basically, yeah, even though you've got a protective order that says that the violator should be arrested, police have discretion and they're not required to actually wind up doing anything. Now, you might be asking yourself, if you're just tuning in, why am I talking about obligations to protect and arrest warrants? Well, that's because it's Friday and I answer your questions on Friday. And the question is, do police have to respond to domestic violence calls, and can they threaten to arrest the victim for calling? And again, they're supposed to actually respond, but, well, they have discretion, so, it's really up to them. And can they threaten to arrest the victim of domestic violence? Well, sure. It's a matter of whether it holds up in court. If there's a lawsuit, and generally civil rights lawsuits are not going to be cheap, and they're not going to be easy to win, so police, by and large, can get away with almost anything. And again, the Supreme Court of the United States says that police do not have a constitutional duty to protect someone, even though the side of their car says to protect and serve. Dissenting opinions from Justices Stevens and Ginsburg, again from 2005, say it's clear that the elimination of police discretion was integral to Colorado and its fellow state solutions to the problem of under-enforcement in domestic violence cases. Colorado was one of the 24 states that, in response to increased attention to the problem of domestic violence during the 1990s, made arrest mandatory for violating protective orders. The justices wrote in their dissenting opinion, the court fails to come to terms with the wave of domestic violence statutes that provided for the crucial context for understanding Colorado's laws. Organizations concerned with domestic violence had watched the case closely and expressed disappointment at the outcome. Fernando LaGuardia, counsel for the National Network to End Domestic Violence, said in a statement that Congress and the states should now act to give greater protection. In another ruling, again from June 2005, the court rebuked the United States Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit in Cincinnati for having reopened a death penalty appeal on the basis of newly discovered evidence after the ruling had become final. The 5-4 decision in Bell v. Thompson came in response to an appeal by the state of Tennessee after the Sixth Circuit removed a convicted murderer, Gregory Thompson, from the state's death row. After his conviction and the failure of his appeals in the state court, Mr. Thompson, with new lawyers, had gone to federal district court seeking a writ of habeas corpus on the grounds that his initial lawyer had been constitutionally inadequate. The new lawyers obtained a consultation with a psychologist who diagnosed Mr. Thompson as having schizophrenia. But the psychologist's report was not included in the file of the habeas corpus petition in district court, which denied the petition. It was not until the Sixth Circuit and then the U.S. Supreme Court had also denied his petition, making the case final, that the Sixth Circuit reopened the case, finding that the report was crucial evidence that should have been considered. In overturning that ruling in an opinion by Justice Anthony Kennedy, the majority said the appeals court had abused its discretion in an extraordinary departure from standard appellate procedures. Chief Justice William Rehnquist and Justices Scalia, Clarence Thomas, and Sandra Day O'Connor joined the opinion. In the dissenting opinion, Justice Stephen G. Breyer said the majority had relied on rules to the exclusion of justice. Judges need a degree of discretion, thereby providing oil for the rule-based gears, he said. Justices Stephen Ginsburg and David Souter joined in the dissent. Now, the link to this article will be in the show notes. You can go back, read it at your leisure. I will also post a link over to the Warren v. District of Columbia ruling, as well as the ruling for DeShaney v. Winnebago County. Again, all of these have been federal court rulings saying that police have absolutely no obligation to protect anyone other than themselves. Very, very scary, right? Especially when the side of their cars say to protect and serve. That's nothing more than false advertising. Stay tuned. There's more here on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
During the 2013 Porcupine Freedom Festival, Davi Barker presented an idea for a renegade psychological experiment. Since then, he has refined his idea and put his plan and research into writing. He explains, "We aim to show the world beyond a shadow of a doubt that power corrupts absolutely and corrupt authority deserves no obedience." Authoritarian Sociopathy is available from Amazon.com, all major bookstores, and now available as an audiobook. You can support FPP Radio by shopping online. Whether you're looking for precious metals, bitcoins, or books, you'll find that and more at shop.fppradio.com. Every purchase you make from one of my affiliates, like Namecheap, Spendabit, and Amazon at shop.fppradio.com helps fund FPP Radio. Or you can shop directly from FPP with Bitcoin in the Bitcoin store. That's shop.fppradio.com.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry. Online at fppradio.com.
Hey, welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at fppradio.com. Changing gears here in just a moment. But first, I want to make sure that I tell you about a wonderful group of people. And they will provide you good service because, well, if they don't provide you good service, you will not return to them as a customer. I'm talking about Roberts and Roberts Brokerage. And they've been providing good service for well over 40 years, since 1977. They've been a trusted source for buying and selling precious metals like gold and silver. Also, they deal with platinum and palladium. And yeah, I said buying and selling. So you want to get your hands on some precious metals? Call Roberts and Roberts Brokerage. Maybe you have some that you need to get rid of for whatever reason. Roberts and Roberts Brokerage can help. And they are a crypto-preferred business, meaning they want to take your Bitcoins in exchange for the gold, the silver, the platinum, and the palladium. They don't feed the banks. And to show that they're crypto preferred, they've permanently removed the minimum purchase amount for all orders paid in digital currency. Call Roberts & Roberts today for knowledgeable advice on buying and selling precious metals and a forward-thinking approach to new technologies. 800-874-9760. That's 800-874-9760, or visit online at rrbi.co. That's RRBI, as in Roberts & Roberts, Brokerage Incorporated, rrbi.co. Again, changing gears here completely, because I think I did fairly well answering that question here for the Ask Me Anything. Now, if you have questions, you can send those over at any time using the anonymous, if you want it to be anonymous, contact form on the website at ama.fppradio.com. So just in the browser, type in ama.fppradio.com. It's that easy. Then the form Ask for a Name. Doesn't have to be your name, doesn't have to be a real name. Just put in a name. And then you put in something that resembles an email address, and then you include your question. ama.fppradio.com. So let's, again, change gears completely here. And let's talk about why smart people sometimes make dumb decisions. According to science. Article from archetypes.com says, think about a decision you've made that you were totally convinced was the right way to go, but in retrospect you realize was really dumb. What happened? Well, we're human. That's why consumers aren't always rational. That's why marketers aren't always rational. That's why some middle-aged men think unbuttoning the top 2 buttons on their shirt is a good look. If you want to make consistently better decisions, especially when the choice you make is extremely important, make sure you avoid the following mental traps. Number 1, loss avoidance. We all tend to strongly prefer to avoid a loss than to acquire a gain. Put more simply, we're much more likely to try to avoid losing $500 than we are trying to make $500. How much more do we want to avoid a loss than acquire a gain? Research by Daniel Kahneman, author of the book Thinking Fast and Slow, indicates that losses are 2 times as psychologically powerful as gains, meaning a bird in the hand does seem worth 2 in the bush. To put this another way, and I'll skip some of what's written here, to put this another way, have you ever watched a game show to where, and I'm fairly certain you have watched a game show, but one of the ones to where, like, say the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, of you're at $20,000. If you get this question right, you go to $30,000 and you will walk away with no less than $30,000 if you get this question right. Or you can leave right now with $20,000. And maybe you're not sure of the answer to the question. You're probably sitting there yelling, take the deal. Or even that game show, Deal or No Deal, to where you randomly pick suitcases. And then, like, you can walk away right now with X. Or there's one suitcase with $1 million in it. Now, I realize that, that's a little bit different, but it's still along the same lines of people are more likely to try to avoid losing money than they are to try making money. The problem with loss avoidance is that it typically means you default to the status quo. So you decide not to attend a networking event because you don't want to give up an hour of your free time. Fine. But what if you might have met the perfect partner for a joint venture? Or you decide that you want to invest $20,000 in your business because you hate the thought of losing it. Fine. But what if you might have created a product line that would create a great new revenue stream? The key is to properly value the potential loss. Often, what we may lose isn't as valuable as we might think. And think of it this way, you can recover from almost any loss, but you will someday recover from not having done everything possible to achieve your dreams. Number 2, recall bias. Scientists say recall bias is availability heuristic. I'll explain that and then go over very briefly the other reasons why really smart people sometimes do really dumb things. I think we've all been in that boat. Stay tuned. This is Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
In 1999, Darryl W. Perry began a search for traditional values, which led him down a path to the ideas of liberty. He tells the story in A Rebel's Journey, My Path to Liberty. Of the book, Dr. Brian Sovereign says, sometimes it's funny, and sometimes I think it's crazy, but it's always authentic. Ask for A Rebel's Journey wherever books are sold, or visit arebelsjourney.com. Bitcoin Not Bombs is a launching pad for nonprofits and social entrepreneurs into the financial freedom of the Bitcoin economy. Bitcoin Not Bombs offers premium publicity campaigns designed to facilitate an organization's adoption of Bitcoin as a payment system and to fully capitalize on that decision in their fundraising efforts. Bitcoin Not Bombs is fully committed to being the hub of the nonprofit sector of the Bitcoin economy, maximizing the potential cross-promotion of all our clients and commercial partners. To learn more, visit bitcoinnotbombs.com.
Hey, this is Adam from the ANCAP Barbershop. You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Why do really smart people make really dumb decisions? Well, some research gives 6 reasons. The first is loss avoidance. Went into detail on that. Number 2, recall bias. Scientists say recall bias is availability heuristic, which is why I refer to it as recall bias. Recall bias says that if you recall something, it must be important, or at least more important than an alternative not as easily recalled. That means we tend to give heavy weight to recent information and form opinions and make decisions biased towards whatever is more recent. For example, if you read about a shark attack, you'll naturally decide shark attacks are on the rise. Even if no others have occurred in the past 12 months, it's recent, must be a trend. There's a little bit more written here, but you get the point. They say always use what you recall as a springboard for doing more research to make sure you know everything you need to know, not just what you remember. Number 3, survivor bias. Survivor bias is focused on people or things that survived while overlooking those that did not, simply because they weren't visible. Again, more written here that I will not go into for the sake of time, but remember, as always, the link will be in the show notes. Number 4, anchor bias. Setting an anchor in negotiations because the value of an offer is highly influenced by the first relevant number, the anchor that starts the negotiation. In negotiation, anchors matter. Know that value before you start. Number 5, confirmation bias. And I think we all know what confirmation bias is. It's when you find information that confirms what you already think. Number 6 here is idea or origination bias. The author says, I like to call this one NIH, not invented here. It's based on a simple premise. If I or we didn't think of it, it must be worthless. And then they have some advice on how to overcome these biases that I will go through very, very quickly. Don't be distracted by the source. Don't be distracted by the industry. Don't be distracted by your own ego. And finally, don't be distracted by organizational bias. Never forget that great people and great companies adopt outstanding strategies and practice no matter where they find them. So just because you didn't come up with the idea doesn't mean it's not a really good idea. Also doesn't mean that you can't improve upon the idea. That's it for today. But don't forget, every Friday I answer your questions. Send those over ama.fppradio.com.
The podcasts of FPP Radio are licensed under Copy Heart. We believe that copying is a form of flattery and do not abide by the copyright laws. Those laws serve to restrict the flow of ideas which no one can really own. Copying is an act of love. Love is not subject to law. If you enjoy the show, consider joining the Fans program and get perks like ad-free versions of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio and FPP Radio News, and also get a copy of the monthly newspaper FPP News. To learn more or to join the Fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com.